French IA at 8:30, so I have to go a little bit early.
On time, yeah.
No, he was late. Who's that about? Okay, so this problem, I believe, was a homework question. With relevance to what we're doing today while I'm asking this one. So ratio test, the n+1 term divided by the nth term, and split things up so I could cancel them easily. And then smooshing all the n's together, the exponent on all of those are going to be the same, so that whole thing goes to 1. So what squirts out of this at infinity is we're effectively multiplying by x over 3. And when it's a function of x, Miriam, what do I have to do with that now? The absolute value of that needs to fit, or it has to be less than 1. So alligators, squish it, and we get that. So the interval of convergence is -3 to 3. The radius of convergence is 3. Okay? So what we're doing today, there's a whole lot of work involved in testing the endpoints. And this is my, in hoping for what goes on the, whatever question 6 you get, I'm hoping it's not one of these, because they're so paper. There's little details to miss. But fighting chance, let's go. So you guys have a packet. Here's the A of parting the C's. And they're defining alternating series test. Yeah. So they're trying to really stronghold define alternating series is all of these u values, they're all positive and the sign between them changes. So this is their way of saying, look, we're not subtracting a negative. So, and this says both, it's supposed to be 3 things. So, alternating series test. The way to use alternating series test is you state these 3 things apply, therefore. So the 3 things that we need to be true is the signs need to alternate. So on, off. State this whichever way you want, but it's the terms, the later terms get smaller and smaller. They can stay still for a while, but eventually they have to go and get smaller. And then the last thing is If the very, very last term goes to 0, so nth term test, you know, I said nth term test, you can't just do that. Well, if these other conditions are also true, it's gonna converge by alternating series test. So this one, to use the test, you need to check, do these three things apply? And if they do, you say converges by alternating series. Okay. And for a long time, I had cut off this one because I'm like, if the last term goes to 0, how can that other one not be true? And of course, AP put some weird contrived piecewise function on the multiple choice, and I was like, okay. So they define one thing. Whenever n is even, the function does this. Whenever n is odd, the function does this other thing. And on both of them, this went to 0, but this part was not true. Okay. So they can do contrived things. But for the most part, what you guys are going to do, if we look at this series, the nth term, it was 1 over 2, 1 over 3, 1 over 4, 1 over 5, 1 over 10, 1 over n. And the sign turns on and off. So the way to use alternating series test, are the signs alternating? Yes. Are the terms getting smaller? Is the last term going to 0? So that's it. The things apply, so it converges. So here's the catch. 1 over n, that diverges. However, if I make it now alternate, now it converges. Yesterday I said something about absolute convergence. This one doesn't just converge, but it converges conditionally. There was a condition that had to be true to make that work. Right. So, yeah. So this one doesn't converge absolutely. It converges conditionally. And what were the conditions needed to alternate? Okay. Then we need to check, sometimes maybe the endpoints are going to be included, sometimes they're not going to be included. And you think there's all this work, why do we want to do that? Well, if Sean, you're the endpoint, you're going to be like, well, do I get to go or not? You know, you want to know if you're invited to the party. The rest of them are invited to the party, but you and Preston are the endpoints on either side, we need to test. Is Preston's endpoint work? Does Sean's endpoint work? You want to know, you need to go. Or are you voted off the island? So find the radius of convergence for this first problem. It only works when there's x's in it. There are x's in this one.
Yeah. What do you get for your ratio? I got it.
She didn't notice me.
She was like, she was bent over right here. I started next week.
I was like, I did it, and then I realized I forgot
Oh, wait. We made everybody. No, you looked at me. That's what I do.
All right, what you got? What comes out of the ratio test? Just x squared, because 2n over 2n plus 2, if n goes to infinity, that's basically a rational function from pre-cal, even powers, so it goes to. So this is reduced to, which is 1 in this case. 1 times x squared is just x squared. Yeah.
Just like not use the one. It's just the negative one.
Okay. So, good catch. And I did purposely ignore it because it just didn't fit in the space I had. What comes out of here, if I get something that comes out of it, what am I gonna do with it? Squish it between a negative or absolute value.
Yeah.
So the negative part doesn't matter. And in last year's AP, like grading rubric for the thing, they didn't even put it in. Wow, I know. Shocked by all kinds of things they did last year. But, all right. Where is that thing squared less than 1? About the 8th time we've had this conversation this year. Okay. How do I deal with the squared in that bit? Which one?
So you can square the positive one with plus or minus 1, and then the negative one wouldn't exist. You can just throw it out. And then you can just switch the x between negative 1.
Like that you started speaking my language. Squish it. So the squared goes away. Sorry. Clearly x squared can't be negative. So he says just take the positive side. Where does x squared? I made it in equals. Where does the x squared equal 1 at positive and negative 1? And then, now the negative came back. It's those places. Okay? All right. So it'd be lovely if this was done, but it's not. So that's the radius of convergence. It goes from -1 to 1, but maybe, Preston, do you want to be the positive or the negative? Positive, of course you do. So maybe you are the positive one, and you want to know, are you invited to the party? So we're going to say, I need to test this specific one little special place. I'm going to put +1 in for x and rewrite this thing. If it was just a string of numbers, would it have converged? So let's look at it. Instead of the x to the 2n, it's now 1 to the 2n. And looking at that string of numbers that results, cleaning things up, -1 to the n plus 1 over 2n. Does that converge or diverge? Okay, by p-series, it's in trouble. However, there's something new we just learned. Does it alternate signs? Yes, because the -1 turns on and off. Are the terms, if they remain positive, are the terms getting smaller and smaller? Does the nth term go to 0? So unfortunately, I have all those things written under the other one. But by alternating series test, we're gonna let Preston come. Now we're gonna test Sean. The same idea. Plugging in -1, is it any different? Well, the -1 got squared. So, sorry, Sean, you might have wanted to be negative, but you are positive now. So testing the other end, Sean is also alternating, getting successively smaller, and the very last term goes to 0. So therefore, both endpoints, it converges by alternating series test. So we're going to say it's not -1 to 1, but it also includes the square brackets. All that work just to put a square bracket. Yep.
So then is it -1 is less than or equal to x, is less than or equal to 1? So that's just do that.
So all that work to say, yeah, put an equal sign on those. Yeah, great.
How many points will AP take on? Just don't.
Okay, I have seen this be 4 points out of the 9. Just to test, I know. Great, this is why it's easy to forget or miss or jump over it. And this was 4 points out of 9. That's huge and ridiculous. Because the tests for these guys on checking each endpoint, they'll make one of them be an nth term test and the other one's going to be alternating. And they want to see that you can do both and that you use the right conclusion. This was the one last year that the kids were said diverges by nth term. They didn't write the word test. Like they did all the things. They didn't say test, Miss Pascal. Yeah.
I'll make a question like this. Is it going to tell you to check the endpoints, or do you just have to whenever you're finding them?
Yeah, it does not tell you. But so the other ones that we did with ratio test yesterday, did they all come out as geometric? Maybe not. If it's strictly officially geometric, you don't need to test the ends because they're not going to work. But generally, look at the endpoints to see if there's something going on. Okay, so there's different flavors. This one, both endpoints were included. So we're going to do a couple more examples where Hadley's included, but sorry, Clara is not. And then there'll be ones where, sorry, Kai, you and Josh both not invited to the party. So let's check them out. Do the ratio test. See what you get.
That's what it says. Yes.
So I heard someone in the back say, "What's that zero by ratio test? What does that mean, Harry?"
Yeah, I know.
No ends to test.
What do I do?
Well, good. All of you are invited. And for those of you who've looked at the chapter 9 test that's posted, there's usually 3 or 4 questions that are find the interval of convergence, and it's test the endpoints. Maybe there were no endpoints and everybody's included. Or maybe it's one of these.
Sorry, for the last one, did you just say that because it goes to 0, like is that the alternating
Oh, wait.
test, or did you just say it goes to
This
0?
was not alternating test. This was, right?
Yeah.
Grady said the ratio test came out to 0.
Oh,
then
so then it,
the next term down the line was adding that much new value. It didn't improve anything. So pick any X you want. You can go crazy. It no ends to test. It worked for all of the numbers. Did he?
So the ones like these, I don't really understand what to do with, because there's an X and N.
Right, but N, so X is a number you had to pick really big. Like a jillion Googleplexes. But it had to be a number that you chose. Some X value, static, not moving number. So right there, it's a variable pixel, 100. 100 divided by infinity plus 1 would be 0. So that means at the end of time, it wasn't actually geometric, but if it was, I'm multiplying my current spot by 0 to get the next term. How much value is that next term going to add to? Nothing. So it didn't matter what X you chose, eventually infinity is going to hurt. So it's meaning, so this one, it converted for all of these. This is a recap from 924.
I could answer that. I can't.
Yeah, okay, that's what it was.
Yeah, convergence of the set. The radius is 0.
I just write negative.
So there are no endpoints.
I've never had zero. Middle school teacher. I feel so bad.
Who's got the worst job?
I already know this. My main reference is just like, so we went to middle school for like 2 years and quit. And went back up to high school.
There are a lot of teachers here that started in middle school. Some started in kindergarten.
Yeah, I would throw it.
I
don't know what to do with it.
Hey, why did you say this? What's going on? But I heard something else. Like,
Chuck snowballs on
okay. What point? All right. So this one, I listed out, like, if you have the time, list out a couple of terms to see what's going on. Clearly, this is gonna get huge. N factorial is thinking just massive. But if we plug in the magic number that makes all those guys go away, it'll converge only at that point. So the example that we just did, infinite, pick any x you want, they all work, it's fine. This one, no, super big restriction, you can only choose one x value. Yes.
So, sorry, if we're doing like the ratio test and you get like infinity times x plus 1, how would you figure out that you do have to, like, if you get infinity, should you always?
Is there some special x value that's gonna make things go away? If this just was n factorial, that's gonna get huge, super duper fast. So that would not converge at all. But there is some variable, like I asked Sydney, pick a number, any number. Well, now you need to pick a very specific number to make it work.
Okay.
All right, so the second part, see, no, this is the same one. Okay, part D, you're gonna get n's. So this one, do the ratio test and check the endpoints. Oh, yeah. And you know we have an adjusted time thing today, right? Okay, so they told us, I mean, yay for basketball and stuff, but they told us last night at after 3:00 that we're having a pep rally today. And as a lot of the math department has assessments planned for today, we're a little unhappy about that, as most people had copied theirs already.
Yeah.
But yeah, slightly shorter classes so that we can say, yeah, yay. But it's gonna rain and they're gonna try and squish everybody in the gym, and only the first 35 classes that responded to the email can go if it rains.
Wait, the first thing.
So, woo, for the 35 classes that get to go. So everyone else is gonna pay penance and stay for 30 minutes and so no rain, please. Oh, no.
Yeah, I did. I knew I said that.
There's no
Running up. I had her tell her to do, and I had to he definitely did not.
No, I know. She's sweet though. Like she means well. She just had like random stuff, and she's put on the board like for the subgroup network. Like,
All right, guys, can we look at part D? So ratio test, I get x plus 3 out of that. So squishing that between -1 and 1. My endpoints are -4 and -2. Josh, what do I do with those?
You do endpoint test.
Endpoint test, which is doing what?
You plug in -4.
Okay. So I'm going to test the endpoints. And so maybe putting -4 in for x. So we'll do that, plug in -4, and now it's no longer a power series, it's actually just numbers. So I have -1 to the n over 2n. Is that going to converge or diverge? Converge. But P series is going to fail. Why is it going to converge? It's alternating, terms are decreasing, the nth term goes to 0, so that one's going to converge by alternating series. So I am going to say, well, the -4 Josh is included. He's allowed to go to the pep rally because he's one of the 35 that responded on time. Now, Kai, I don't know if you were maybe late to responding. Putting in -2, I already see the issue. -2 plus 3 is a +1. He is no longer alternating. He diverges by P series, so he's not invited. Just Josh. Sorry. Responded too late. Positive. So Brady, this is the thing. They'll be like, this is why it's 4 points. They're like, it's a lot of work in just knowing to put the equal sign before not. But if you forget the whole thing, like a lot of it, this one was pretty easy to grade. Lots of people were like, here you go, here's your roll. I've just moved on to the test endpoints.
Yes.
No, you see, you can't like guess or gaslight. You gotta say the things for why that, yeah. But if it's multiple choice, go for it. Sean?
All you have to do is just state that alternating series wise, state like a reason.
You got and so the way alternating series works is you need to say 3 things, it alternates. The terms are getting smaller, and the last term goes to 0. Touchdown. Or whatever.
You won't swipe the hedge up.
Okay, so the summary of these guys, we just did 4 of them. They will often ask things, does this converge absolutely? Does it converge conditionally? Rule of thumb, if one end is included and one end is not, there were conditions that made that apply. So that's when it's conditional. For real, it's not the actual thing, but it's considered absolute convergence if both ends are included or if both ends are not. So if it's a mix and match, it's conditional. Well, Josh was allowed to go because he was alternating. Kai was not because he did alternate. Yeah. And if there's no like ends to test, the statement doesn't really apply. Okay.
So in those cases, if there's no ends to test, we just don't even say if it converges absolutely.
I mean,
But on the other ones, you need to say it.
so this is the thing that comes up on the multiple choice a lot. Which ones converge conditionally? So if it's just a list of numbers, it's just a list of numbers. This thing only converges because it alternates. There was a condition that had to be true. So this one converges conditionally versus if it was powers of 2, didn't matter if it alternated or not, that converges absolutely. Endpoints, if both endpoints are in or both endpoints are out, there was no condition, they converge absolutely. Mix and match, condition. Is that the end of the packet or is there a back page? Back page. So summarizing the ratio test, when do you have to check the endpoints? Well, when that function got spit out. Okay. We have 2 minutes left in class. The Monday, let's see. Please do the homework, come in with whatever questions you have about 9.4, 9.5. Because we have Monday, then Tuesday is the SAT, and Wednesday is your last day for any questions on all things chapter 9. And Thursdays is your test unless they move that severe weather drill to the first period. They moved it a couple of times. That's the plan. Yeah.
Did you say on Monday?
Monday is like homework review for all the things. Like we're done chapter 9. That's it. So do the homework so that you know what to ask because there's not a lot of opportunities. Because it's great.